Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to talk about three topics that I have been asked about. So I figured I'd do a video is the quickest way to address it. The first thing is about duality and polarity and 5D and the whole good versus bad and evil that is part of this narrative that we're all being a witness to with this focus that's taking place on who's doing what in the collective experience with regard to trying to take down humanity and all of that sort of stuff, right? And then the next talking point that I want to talk about or myth bust is viruses and the fact that we cannot catch a virus. So I'll be talking about that. And the last thing is entities and entity attachment. I get asked about that all the time. So I figured I'd throw this in too and myth bust that as well. So welcome. Today, is December 3rd, and on the West Coast, they are experiencing the solar eclipse that is taking place today at, I think, somewhere just after 11 p.m. Pacific time, which means in the East Coast here, it will take place later. So it'll be tomorrow for us. It'll be on the 4th. And the 4th is actually a big day. I understand Pluto is going direct, I think. And there is a shift happening with Pluto that hasn't occurred in the lineup, the planetary lineup, since 1776. Which is very exciting because it was July 4th, 1776. And as you know, that was the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which means freedom, which then speaks to the freedom codes that we've been activating that started back on July 4th in 2019. So those freedom codes that kicked off back then are really going to be super amplified tomorrow in the light of this solar eclipse as the planetary alignment does its thing and brings us back into focused attention, focusing on freedom. So that means also that there will be a shift in the collective experience, in the collective consciousness. Now, again, as you know, I've talked about this many times. This does not mean that suddenly people are going to wake up and be conscious and be like, oh my goodness, looking at things from a different perspective. No, that's not going to happen. It's still going to happen in its time, but it's going to get a power surge to it, if you will, right? So there's going to be this power surge through this solar eclipse that's going to amplify the opportunity for people to come into greater consciousness. So that's why it's very exciting, because it's surrounding freedom. It has everything to do with freedom. And with that, there's also this feeling of renewal, celebration, a death of the old per se, and maybe even like a feeling of rebirthing or a renewal, something like that. Okay. Because I could tell you, I have not celebrated Christmas for probably about 7 years, could be a little bit longer than that. And I really hadn't felt Christmas as I was tuning to the higher frequencies, just not feeling it in my field. And then all of a sudden, this past 2 weeks, I have been feeling very charged with Christmas spirit, not the gift giving, because that is really tied to consumerism, but the Christmas spirit of what coming together, the gatherings, the joyfulness, all of that. And, you know, for my family growing up, I'm German and Hungarian. My father was Hungarian, my mother was German. And so growing up in my family, Christmas Eve was very, very important, very special. We didn't really celebrate Christmas Day, but Christmas Eve we did. And it was always about the coming together, the family dynamic, caring, sharing. It was not as much about the gift giving as it was about being together and love and just, you know, sharing. So I have really started to feel into that this week. And to anchor more of that light frequency, I've actually gotten a Christmas themed coloring book, adult coloring book from Johanna Basford. Joanna's, I think it's called Joanna's Christmas. And I have another one from Rita Berman, which is, I'm not even gonna try to say it in German because I haven't used my German in years, so I will spare you all that. But it's another one that is a Christmas themed book, and now neither book has, you know, Santa Claus in it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the lights, the traditions of the lights, and the coming together, and the joy, and the celebrating of each other, right? Each participating in a co-sharing. And we could say family dynamic, but I'm talking about that on a greater level, like the soul family dynamic, the really the depth within. Okay, so I've been feeling that. So I got these two coloring books so that I could color Christmas scenes like snow and trees and snowmen and skiing and stuff like that, mountain scenes, and you know, just different things that represent the season, really the season of lights and the season of joy. Something that I really loved when I was in Germany was that they celebrated Christmas Eve, and also they could celebrate Christmas with lighting candles on the Christmas tree, real candles. Okay, and that's how I grew up. We lit real candles on the Christmas tree, and then for Christmas Eve, it was called Sylvester, and I'm probably even mispronouncing that, but they would shoot off fireworks, and that was so special that they lit the sky up with fireworks. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about the celebration of light. Okay, so I am feeling that, and I want you to feel that too. So tune in because it feels very, very magical as we're coming through this gateway, this eclipse gateway. Okay, and so coming through this gateway, because of the narratives that are playing out now, a lot of people are feeling despair, because here yet we're in another variant, which is, you know, not for all intents and purposes, not truth. It is another chapter in this story that we've all been held hostage in for the last 2 years. And it's just another event to really hide or shelter what is truly going on, which I don't want to get into on this channel because it's not about that. But I just want to say there's a lot of people that are falling into despair and sadness and grief. And I was able to tune into that every time I go out to the stores and I'm out in public. I do feel into that, and I could feel that sense. And people are looking for something to give them hope. And the Christmas season is bringing that through, except that we do know that, you know, sometimes we will have to go through something in order to truly come into our full consciousness. So I'm just going to say, whatever is transpiring over the next couple of weeks, just know that these planetary alignments have a lot to do with that, with shaking loose those things that are still hidden in the dark, that need to have the light expose them, because that's what solar eclipse do. It like literally shines a spotlight on whatever's been hiding in the dark. So we can have that expectation for that. Okay. So this is a very powerful time that we're in. It's a time that we could use very wisely if we allow ourselves to spend time going within, going into the heart center. And maybe, you know, even if you are not somebody that can meditate, because a lot of us, I mean, myself included, when I, especially in my younger years, could not meditate because I was so, you know, in the high 5D consciousness already, that meditating seems so slow to me because my mind was on fast forward. And so, but now I, you know, can go in and boop, I'm out and I'm gone just like that, because I've trained myself to tune higher in that way. And even if we can't, most of the times when I'm painting or I'm drawing, I'm putting on, you know, some music like solfeggio frequencies or something like that, you know, that is going to help me and is going to support me with my art and staying in the higher timelines. So even if you don't like to meditate, maybe get some art materials or whatever. I'm having an art challenge that's ongoing. It's going to be a weekly challenge, and to try and inspire people to come into the creator states, because we are activating these higher level creator codes right now. And it's very important for us to tap into those creator codes and create the reality that we're desiring. So I'm trying to help foster that for anyone that wants to participate. It's on my Instagram page. You can go there. The link is below. If you click on that link, it will take you over there and see. It is called 5D Inspired Art. And you can use the hashtag, or you can use the @5D Inspired Art. And that is the new page that I've created for this art challenge. It's very much like Inktober, except that it's for higher level creativity to keep us flowing through the creator codes. Okay. So if you want to join us over there, please feel free to do that. It will help us to just keep ourselves elevated through this next couple of weeks. Okay. And as I said, if whatever transpires out there, don't pay attention to it until it comes into your reality and it's right here and present in front of you. It's really not in your reality. It's just part of the movie that's playing out, right? So we want to do everything we can to not participate in that and distract ourselves so that we can distract ourselves to stay in the higher timelines. Okay. So that's what this is about, because we don't want to participate in that storyline and get pulled into that. So what's happening, what's big right now is that we have a lot of crystalline plasma light frequency influxes coming in. The crystalline light frequency activates our Christ timeline. It activates the Christed state within us. Our DNA gets activated and upgraded for that. It also helps with the crystalline light body activations, because crystalline is really Christ light, crystalline light, Christ light, light body frequencies, and that's where we are now. So these crystalline frequencies coming in are activating the Christ codes within us to help us to expand our consciousness and stay in the higher timelines. So it's very important to have that awareness that, you know, everything is here to support us. Really, we're having a lot of support right now. And if you're not paying attention, you're not tuned in, you may not feel that way, right? But if we can let everything just excite us and get excited, and if you're feeling like I am, the joy of Christmas, and it's not so much the Christmas of the Santa Claus Christmas, but it's the Christmas of love and sharing and coming together, let yourself feel that joy, then let that joy amplify your field and bring you right into those higher timelines, which is very important. All right. And as always, since we have the crystalline light frequency and the plasma light frequency together, the plasma light frequency can make it challenging, because I know, you know, from my own experiences, plasma light can give you tummy troubles. It can make your tummy gurgly, especially after you've eaten a meal, and make you think like, you know, there's something wrong with you when there's really not. It can create a lot of gas in the body, whether you're belching or it's coming out the other way. It's a very uncomfortable state of being, because it's the light frequencies coming in and removing the distortion from our field. So the photonic light comes in and it lifts out what is no longer capable of being held by us, because we've ascended our frequency a little more. And then the plasma comes in like roto-rooter and just cleans everything out. So it's very important to have that awareness, right? So that we're not tuning into that there is something wrong with us. And then suddenly we're heading down into the 3D frequency, trying to figure out through Google and WebMD what's wrong. Okay, just know that it's light frequencies coming in. You can't see the light frequencies. They're coming in, they're activating you. And our only job is to be a good receiver and allow ourselves to rest when we need to rest. And just let our body do its thing, okay? Headaches because of solar expansion, CMEs, which are coronal mass ejections, solar winds, solar storms, so much stuff going on right now. So headaches, his crown is expanding, the feeling of heating up inside when we're going into expansion, heating up from the inside. All of a sudden, it's like your body's burning up. You're just sweating. You can't help it. And then when the plasma light hits, the change in frequency, that shift, then brings us into cold, right? Our extremities get cold, our fingers, our feet. And then we feel like we're cold from the inside, and nothing can resolve that chill. Nothing. You could put on, 10 layers of clothing, a bunch of blankets and everything, and it still will not resolve the cold feeling that you're feeling, because it's happening from the inside, not the outside. Okay. Sore throats, very, very common right now. Has nothing to do with the cold, has nothing to do with the weather or anything like that. What's happening is our thyroid is being reworked in these higher light frequencies. The thyroid is where we hold separation. Okay, separation, knowing ourselves as source. So the throat area is going through heavy duty, massive upgrades, and we will feel like we have a sore throat. As well as that, if you are not speaking your truth, immediately your throat will become sore, because you're not speaking your truth and saying your piece and standing in your power. So the throat is on deck right now, clearing all distortion through our throat chakra. Okay, so always speaking from the highest state within us, staying in those higher creator codes in 5D, all the way up to 9D consciousness. Okay. Confusion. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of disorientation, especially as our field has to spin faster in these higher light frequencies. It will feel like confusion. It will feel, like there is a depth perception issue when you're walking. So please be careful. If you are unbalanced, you may accidentally fall over and hurt yourself. So just be very careful with that. Also dizziness, as the field is trying to right itself and expand in its spin. That's very, very common. For some of you, you're activating higher states of consciousness. Your intuition is really heightened and coming online. So that's a big one also. And some of you are having new experiences meditating. And so you may be meditating and all of a sudden feel like a balloon, like you're going to float away from your body. And that may feel very fearful or unnerving to you. Try not to control it and keep practicing at it until you can do it effectively, because that's the feeling that we want to expand into the quantum field. And that is you expanding into the quantum field. Okay. So that's perfectly natural. There's nothing to be afraid of. You're not going to leave your body. You will always come back. So please do not worry about that. Okay. Another area is mucus. So bringing up a lot of phlegm. Phlegm carries very, very deep programming. And also the bones, right? Teeth is another one, carries very, very deep programming. I think my last video, I might've mentioned that I was having some issues in my teeth actually hurting me. And that has since gone away. And I didn't see a dentist for it because it just came and it went. I knew what it was. So I just let myself experience it and just kept feeding myself self-love. And it eventually went away. It only lasted like 2 days. But mucus, another one, deep programming coming up when you're clearing the mucus. Try not to judge yourself if you're having these experiences. Another area is going to be the back, okay, and the spine. The spine is the area of our body that holds the energy of structure and support in our life, okay? That is where structure exists. And if we don't have good structure in our reality, our back is going to start to talk to us. Okay, so that's an indicator that we need to bring more structure into our lives. So those are really the areas that are key right now, because the back is lighting up the solar discs. The solar discs, as they light up and they activate, they're connecting, fusing all of the key points in our body. You've heard me say that the chakras are going away. Everything is merging into one big energy system, our light body. Some of you are activating your light body, your Merkaba. And then once you do that, you will not have to do that again. You will just go right into the quantum field, okay? The quantum field of superconsciousness. So keep that in mind when you are meditating, and try to let go of any fear that you're having so you can enjoy the experience, okay? Now, let's get to the talking points. The first talking point I wanted to bring up is one I hear over and over and over again, where people are talking about, oh, I'm always in 5D, I'm totally in 5D, but yet they are playing into the idea that there is evil out there, okay? And we can use that as the good versus evil, God versus Satan type of thing, right? So we want to look at that and say, if we're looking and operating and being in a 5D state of being, then we're going to operate fully from 5D, which 5D is the frequency of love. And if we're in 5D, only love exists. So we're not feeding the narrative of that lower level distortion, saying that there is something evil at play, right? We're looking at this from the highest perspective, saying, yes, there is a movie taking place out there in that 3D reality. I reside in the 5D reality. I'm not tuned into the 3D movie because I don't need it. I'm already awake, right? This is 5D talking, or 9D, wherever you want to reside, right? And I don't need it because I'm already awake. And I'm not going to feed into the fear factor that there's evil at hand that is still making this a challenge, that is still trying to win this spiritual battle, right? We're not going to play into that, because if we play into that, then we are not in 5D. We're still in 3D, 4D. Okay, do you see that? If we're letting go of that narrative and we're experiencing that that is a reality still existing on the 3D timeline, but we are on the 5D timeline, we're holding love for those still wanting to experience that 3D timeline, okay? That's how this works. So if you're still in the battle of good versus evil, and that's what's happening on the earth, then you're holding that 3D, 4D timeline. Now, also in that 3D, 4D timeline is going to be the entity story of entity attachments, okay? And I'm just going to tell you that there is no such thing as entities, all right? Anything that you're perceiving as an entity is your shadow aspect. Because you have to remember, we're creating it all, especially because we're existing on all parallel realities simultaneously, okay? So I see a lot of times people will say, Someone just recently said, well, I had these scratches on my arm when I came back from dream state. And so I felt like an entity attacked me during the nighttime while I was dreaming. I was in dream state. And I would say, no, that was you having that experience and, scratching yourself or giving yourself that experience through the shadow self that you were playing out in dream state, okay, or through your perception that there is an entity situation, an entity attachment. And that entity attachment, when people say, well, I have this negative voice constantly talking to me, I think I have an entity attached. It's not, it's a consciousness. Everything holds consciousness, right? And I've talked about this in my other videos. The walls hold consciousness. The computer holds a consciousness. The chair that I'm sitting in holds a consciousness. The vase holds a consciousness. The pussy willows hold a consciousness. The stand holds a consciousness. Everything holds a consciousness, right? It comes together for the purpose of us co-creating the reality that we're existing in. Right? All of this consciousness comes together to pixelate and form a solid form of matter in this moment now to give us this experience of the reality that we're in as being real. Okay. But if you saw it from the highest point, the highest perspective, you would see everything is just really pixelations and there's nothing is real. Okay. It's matter coming together to create form. All right. So in understanding that, then you would see that all form has a consciousness. And just like belief systems are a consciousness, and which is why a belief system is so hard to break, entities are a consciousness. It's a lower frequency, lower level consciousness. It's the story of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, and they're both talking in your ear, right? We come in with fractaled aspects of ourself. We don't come in as just the one soul self. And because we're playing in and integrating all of our timelines, all parallel realities, we're folding into this now moment all parallel realities, then we're in communion with all of those aspects of ourselves, the good aspects as well as the bad aspects, because in every incarnation we've had bazillions of incarnations, we've been everything. We've been the good guy and we've been the bad guy. We've been the hero and we've been the victim, right? So if you start to look at entities as a lower level consciousness, that is nothing more than showing up to challenge you to continue to go higher so that you tune out the frequency of that lower level consciousness, or feed that lower level consciousness the love that it needs in order to fully integrate into this now experience with you. That's really what entities are about. Okay. So I wanted to just clear that up because a lot of people are talking about them. And I'm just going to tell you, if you're experiencing them, you are not in 5D. You are in the 4D astral plane, which is where they exist. They exist in 4D. Okay. 4D has massive frequencies. It's like the radio of your car dial. The lower 4D frequency is where these lower consciousnesses exist. The higher 4D frequency is where we hit the rainbow bridge, right? It's that rainbow frequency that then crosses us into the 5D experience. Okay. So I hope that clarifies that. For those of you that were asking me, this is, how it works. Okay. And so now let me talk about viruses for just a second, because there is a confusion out there about viruses because of what we have been told by various sources, the media, doctors, everything else, right? And so for those of you that know me, I have a background as a medical laboratory technologist. I went to school for that, worked in a hospital local here for a couple of years, many, many years ago in the 80s when I was in college. And then I decided that I didn't like what I saw at the hospital, and I didn't want that as my career path. So I chose to go into the world of finance instead. Because I always liked numbers, and I probably would have made a really good accountant. But I didn't choose that as my career path. I chose business management. But anyway, getting back to the virus. So the reason we've been led to believe that is because of the fact of how money is made off of vaccines. Okay. And one of the most important things to understand is that first, let's talk about vax, because it does not prevent a virus. It does not prevent anything. Okay. What it is meant to do, and you can look this up, what it is meant to do, it's meant to lessen the symptoms if you get something, right? So if you get a virus, it's meant to lessen the symptoms of the virus. It's not going to stop it from hitting you. It's just going to lessen the effects of it. That's all a vaccine does, right? And so if we look at what a virus is, so a virus is internally born. It's not like a cold. A cold is bacterial in nature, okay? A gut dysbiosis, where we have a gut biome imbalance, where we have a distortion playing out, where we have maybe chronic diarrhea, something like that, happens through things like Giardia lamblia, E. coli, salmonella, some kind of bacteria coming in. And then colds, if we catch a cold and there's a bacterial nature to it, then for those things that I just mentioned, we get an antibiotic, right? It means anti-bacterial remedy, so to speak, right? I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. And so that will counter anything that could be eradicated through antibiotics, through, penicillin or amoxicillin or any kinds of things like that, right? And that's specifically created for that, because that's an outward contagion. In other words, you eat something and you get E. coli, or you eat something and you get a parasite, or you get bit by a tick and you get a spirochete, which causes Lyme in the body, right? And even spirochetes cannot be healed through antibiotics. They have to be healed through herbal medicine, okay? Or really, they have to be healed through shifting your thoughts and your emotions, because Lyme and every other illness and every other disease is created through our thoughts and our emotions. But that's a talk for another time. So how does a virus work? So how a virus works is when we become toxic internally, in other words, we're eating crappy food, our environment is not the best, and it's causing us a tremendous amount of stress. We're having stress at work. Our external environment is not healthy. Maybe we're around people who are smoking or who are doing things that are causing us to feel stress on the external, right? Maybe we live in a city where there's a lot of pollutants. Maybe there's a lot of noise. So we have external stressors, okay? And so all of those stressors get fed into the body. We pull them in because we don't realize that we're doing it. We're doing it on an unconscious, subconscious level, okay? And after a while, those toxins build up in our cells, especially if we're eating unhealthy foods like sugars and fatty stuff like that, right? Builds up in our cells, excuse me. And then all of a sudden, as it's built up in the cell cannot handle the amount of contaminant, toxin that's in the cell. And so the cell begins to expand. And just like when we have a pimple and the pimple gets filled with fluid, it needs to pop. The cell does the same thing. It erupts. And so when the cell erupts, the toxins spill out into our body. Excuse me. All of a sudden, my throat is very tickly. So the toxins erupt from the cell, spill out into our body, and then our body feels very toxic. And in that toxic state, we start to feel sick. And then we need to rest. And we need to let our body do whatever it needs to do in order to clear out those toxins from the mainstream, because the cells have erupted and purged the toxins into our body. So with a virus, you cannot catch a virus. It's not airborne like a cold pathogen. It's not airborne like a TB virus, right? Like a TB bacterium, whatever you want to call it, because even TB is not a virus, it's a bacterium. And so if you're looking at something like TB, and when I worked in the hospital, this was common, and you're doing a culture and you're putting it in a test tube, and the test tube is a serum test tube, which means that it's liquid, right? And God forbid you accidentally drop that test tube on the floor with a TB culture in it, and it splatters all over the floor. That TB culture is now an airborne culture. Now, certain illnesses like TB are airborne, and they can be inhaled in, and you can develop TB from inhaling a TB spore, I guess you could say, right? And so, but viruses are not like that, okay? We manifest every single illness. I don't care if it's a cold, if it's a virus, whatever it is, cancer, anything else, we manifest it in our body through our toxic thoughts and emotions, okay? So we're creating it. There is no anything out there, all right? And I know people are under the impression that we have to protect from a virus, but it's never created out there. It's not like eating something and it had E. coli and then you get sick, or salmonella and then you get sick. It does not work that way, okay? There is misinformation out there in the population that is being fed into the population about viruses. And I just wanted to clarify this because I see a lot of people are in fear of this next variant. And I really want you to understand that if you're afraid of catching this next variant, then you're placing that fear right where fear resides, which is in the lungs, which is in the chest area, okay? The lungs hold fear and grief. So if you are someone who holds a lot of grief because you've had a lot of loss or a lot of struggle, you might be more susceptible to creating an imbalance in your body that becomes a virus or a cold, right? The common cold. If you hold fear to something, you're going to create an imbalance in your body that's going to create a virus, whatever virus it is, or a cold, or the flu, or a pneumonia, right? Or bronchitis, all right? I see people all the time who hold a lot of grief, and guess what? They have chronic bronchitis. People that have such severe grief that they cannot move beyond that grief actually develop things like COPD, okay? Because they can't move beyond it. And that is a chronic pulmonary disease. It's chronic because their thoughts and their emotions are chronically in grief and sadness, and sometimes fear, and it builds up in the lungs, and then the lungs become incapacitated. Okay. So I just wanted to shed some clarity on this because I see this consistently and I've been asked about it a lot lately. And I just wanted to give you, some higher aligned information on viruses and the fact that we can't catch a virus, we create the virus through our thoughts and emotions, like we do with every other thing that takes place in our body, whether it be cancer, multiple sclerosis, MD, cystic fibrosis, Parkinson's disease. I mean, it's endless. We create it with our thoughts and our emotions and continually feeding that distortion, however it is held in our belief system, again, which is, again, like an outside entity coming in to try and argue with us to keep us in that belief, right? So the more we pay attention and the more we can see how this really works from the higher timeline, we can keep shifting out of the lower timeline, out of the lower level distortion, out of 3D, and finally move into 5D and start creating from the higher perspectives where we're no longer playing in that chaos anymore. All right. So I hope this helps you. See everything as an opportunity to shift higher, all of it as an opportunity to shift higher, and just hold the awareness that we are creating it from the 9th dimensional perspective. We are the creator of all of it, soup to nuts, doesn't matter what it is. So if we're going to have a great experience, we're creating it. If we're going to have a bad experience, we're creating it. Okay. So, I think that's it. All right, I'm going to close this out here. I love you guys. Thank you so, so much. Those of you that have made contributions to support my channel, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It helps me to continue to do this and come back here. I apologize it's taken me so long to do this video. My schedule has been extremely crazy, and I just was not able to get a video out, even though I really wanted to. And these higher light frequencies are super consistent. We're having consistent magnetic shifts on the earth, which is where the dizziness and the nausea come in, and the perception, the depth perception issues and everything. So really try to stay present, try to stay focused on everything as much as you possibly can. Know that I love you so, so very much. To those of you that are new to my channel, thank you for joining me. Hopefully you've subscribed and you've hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I have a new video coming out. To those of you that are continue to support me, thank you. I am so grateful for all of you. I really appreciate you so much. I just want you to know that. And I wish you a wonderful whatever it is that you are doing. I love you so, so, so very much. Get out there, get creating, call in those higher timelines, anchor in those freedom codes. We are gonna just blow this wide open in the next coming months. So try to see the higher perspective and hold that timeline, okay? I love you. See you soon. Bye.